Welcome back to another episode of the Current Conversation, where we are exploring the electrifying edge of innovation, from EVs to industrial automation, everything between and everything after. I'm your host, Shawni Davis, the CEO of Luminary Electrical Contractor. And today's episode is one that I am especially excited about. We are diving into the future of home lighting, and it's powered by something that's been around forever, DC or direct current power. And trust me, once you hear about this technology, you'll rethink your bulbs and all the fixtures and all the things in your home. Joining me today is Dennis Nameth. He is the general manager of ATX LED, a company that's leading in the charge of DC powered lighting systems for new residential construction. We'll talk about how it works. We'll talk about why it's dramatically more efficient and how it pairs beautifully with the solar, battery storage, and smart technology and smart home wave that we're on. So whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a home builder, or someone who just loves clean energy solutions, this episode is for you. But before we plug into the brilliance of this technology that we have, I'd like to kick things off with a little fun icebreaker. We got to break the ice a little bit, let the people know who you are, and just some random questions we have here, okay? So, Dennis, tell me, if you could design your home with an unlimited budget, what is one of the most outrageous or ultra efficient features that you'd add into your home if you could? Unlimited.
I'm a little biased on this one, but obviously I'd go with the full scale DC lighting over constant current, daily addressable. So all my fixtures have zero flicker. I can dim them down to 0%, have all the color changing controls. I would add, an ATX LED hub so I can go and be able to do my automations and make it so it has humic centric lighting. I like things that flow with the sun, right? So as the sun's down, I like to have a warmer color temperature. And then at the heat of the day, when the sun's at its peak point, I like that daylight, more cool white. So if I had the budget, that's what I would do.
I
I
bet you
haven't built
have it.
myself a home yet, but the next one I do build will have that
All
in it.
right. All right. Good. I was about to say, I bet you have that already. You're
I
saying it, but
have
I
it
bet you have it.
in my sunroom.
Okay. Well, good enough. Good enough. Um, and one other question that's kind of a little bit of an icebreaker. What is your biggest light bulb moment when it came to understanding energy efficiency and lighting innovations? What was that like?
you know
Big
the
moment.
well, obviously we're in DC lighting, so when I think about like the biggest light bulb moment was kind of how we got into DC lighting, which was, a builder came to us and said, hey, we're starting to, build modular, and we're going to start trying to make certain, components of this home inside of a factory. And they're like, we know you guys build component systems that are DC. How is that advantageous, and how can we do that in this environment in modular? And, us as a company thinking, we're supplying line voltage light fixtures and low voltage lighting solutions for other industries. We're like, why hasn't this gone into the home industry, and why isn't this being done in residential? So that was a big moment for us, just understanding how construction's changing and how, you know, just something small like that could open us up to DC lighting solutions and all residential and multifamily across the country. So
Nice.
that was a big light bulb moment that, people came to us. I wish I could say it was all our idea, but someone came to us and presented us with the idea, and it just made sense.
Nice. That kind of segues into the next question, which is really no longer an icebreaker, but we just want to kind of talk about you. ATX LED, kind of a little bit of the history, which you've already kind of touched on a little bit, and then just your overall background in electrical lighting systems.
Sure, sure. So ATX LED is now in partnership with Clean Life LED. There was a merger in 2024, early last year. So ATX has been basically full scale, low voltage DC lighting since 2016. Now, the reason around 2016, 2017, ATX came about and started doing DC lighting was a big code change. So in 2017, NEC allowed anything under 60 volts and under 100 watts to be considered, class 2 lighting. And that was a big deal specifically in DC because historically it's been 12 volt or 24 volt, where if you know anything about DC, there's a lot of voltage drop at the lower voltages. So doing full scale homes really didn't make sense because you have some distances that are over 100 feet, and per the NEC you have to have under 3% voltage drop. So that was big. Now Clean Life, historically we've been doing DC lighting solutions for the past 15 years, and we do that with I call them OEMs. So anyone who essentially makes a piece of equipment here in the U.S., a lot of times we'll supply lighting components for. For example, a vending machine that's being used, or they call them, food dispensers. When you go fill up your drink, at a McDonald's, those have headers on them, and that's being made in the U.S. on a factory line. It has an external driver, right? That's located somewhere inside that unit, and then a low voltage DC light lighting up a header on a Coke dispenser. My background personally is in signage. So signage is an industry that, was when I started in signage, that was 12 years ago. It was a big push towards DC lighting. It's all 12 volt. And that's an industry like every single other OEM industry in the country that has transitioned to DC lighting. A lot of advantages, right? And they come as time goes along. DC keeps becoming more and more advantageous. So for the signage market, you think back when people used to, bend neon and channel letters. There's a lot of times you had a lot of people who are like, no, or it's always going to be neon. No one's going to switch to LED. And then, at some point, it's really hard to find a sign company now that's doing anything bending neon unless it's, special order, right? A lot of it's now using faux neon, low voltage. So Clean Life, we've been in the low voltage DC market for a long time. We've also, do a lot of residential in our line voltage division. So that's your standard 120 volt DC. And as I mentioned, we kind of transitioned, probably in 2018 when one of our builders came to us and was looking for a low voltage solution for one of their communities they're building. And it just so happens that Clean Life and ATX got together. There's a lot of synergies, a lot of things that we liked about ATX and figured to be a great partnership. So now we're on the next road of doing full scale DC lit homes throughout the United States.
Which is really cool. Very, very cool stuff. And so with that, can you just talk a little bit about DC lighting and how it differs from AC powered systems that most people have in their homes?
Yeah. So AC is, your traditional 120 volts accelerating current that comes into the home from the breaker box. You go and you wire into, your traditional wiring over Romex, right? It's been done that way for hundreds of years now. We essentially made a DC lighting system where, a lot of people get confused when I talk about energy efficiency of DC and stuff, because everyone's like, I'm already using LED. It's already low voltage. No, but that's not what we're doing, right? We're making an external conversion in a low voltage power supply box. So essentially, think of, your laptop charger that you might have plugged in right now listening to this, right? That's a low voltage brick, right? But we're doing that on a large scale where you have a lot of low voltage power supplies located in a low voltage DC box. And then from there, we're running low voltage to our switches and to our light fixtures. And there's a lot of advantages in doing that. One of those is energy efficiency, right? So currently we make, as I mentioned, Clean Life, we've been in, the line voltage, 120 volt AC for a long time. And we know we have a fixture that's 13, 14 watts. That's 120 volt AC input, and it's only outputting about 1,000 lumens, right? Now, our DC version of that light, we can actually get up to 150 lumens a watt. So that fixture is like 6.5, 7 watts, and is outputting over 1,000 lumens. So we get 50% of the energy savings from that fixture. So making an external conversion, those fixtures are going to last longer. We're going to have higher efficiencies, but also from an installation standpoint, like you, Shawni, you get to utilize, low voltage wiring class 2 now, right?
Yep.
So your install should be quicker. I always tell people it's a win-win-win.
Yep.
So it's a win for the homeowner, right? You're saving money on your energy bills. Your lights are going to last longer. It's a win for the installer because it's a quicker install, less wiring cost, right?
Yep.
So along the whole line, there's a win for everybody, and maybe even the builder gets discounts as well, right?
Maybe.
So this
Nah,
is
just kidding.
yeah,
I kid. Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, definitely a win-win-win. I love that. And so, in terms of savings, since you were talking about savings, like, what kind of long-term savings can homeowners maybe enjoy after switching over to a system like this?
yeah, it's a great question. So obviously it depends on the number of fixtures and what we're replacing to low voltage. But in general, using, 1-to-1, so our bulb for a standard 120 volt AC light bulb that you'd buy from Home Depot, we're looking at 40 to 50% energy savings, which
Wow.
isn't a ton for LED to LED, right? Because LED is already pretty efficient, but you still get that extra 40 to 50% in efficiency. So that's cost savings for the homeowner. And then you go into replacement costs. That's another animal in itself, right? It's funny. You can go to Home Depot and pull a bulb off the shelf, and that bulb probably says, 50,000 hours on it, right?
Yep.
And you install that light bulb in your house, and after a year, that light bulb fails. And I doubt it was even on for, 2,000 hours or
Yep.
1,000 hours, right? A lot of times, you get these, L70 data is what we call them. So after, that 50,000 hours, the LED chip would still be outputting 70% of its initial brightness from day one. But that doesn't really account for all the components that go into driving those LEDs. So a bulb, for example, traditionally bulbs, sockets are meant to generate heat. That's what created light,
Yep.
right? So if you're doing from 120 to low voltage, because all LEDs are low voltage, right?
Yep. Right.
You have to have that AC to DC converter now inside of a bulb base. So when you have a bulb fail, it's traditionally not the LEDs that are failing, it's that AC to DC converter that you're putting in a high heat environment. And the number one thing that kills electrical components is heat.
Heat. Heat.
So we're now removing that and making that, conversion in a safe place that's meant to dissipate heat with larger, better, superior drivers than you would try to fit into a bulb. So our bulbs should last that 50,000 hours, right? So you're not throwing away as much product. So it's a lot more eco-friendly as well, because our lights, we're not throwing away good LED diodes just because an AC to DC converter fails on that fixture, that bulb. So it should be way more eco-friendly. Your light fixtures should last much longer than they traditionally do, which should all add up to cost savings in the long run for homeowners. And you get better consistency of light over that time period as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That 50% is a big driver for
Yeah,
me. Just we'll be putting this in my house at some point. Because quite honestly, the cost of energy is just skyrocketing, especially around here. So that
that's right.
that sounds amazing, and you sold me. So we'll talk after this, okay?
Sounds like a plan.
So let's talk about how the DC lighting works alongside maybe solar and battery systems and how that ties into what you do.
Yeah, so solar and battery, we have a lot of clients who go off grid and they utilize our system. Now, currently, if you want to have solar and battery, you're converting from low voltage from the solar panel into the battery. Then from the battery, you're going, DC to AC, and then you're going AC to DC back to the LEDs, right? We're in the process of trying to cut out, those middle conversions. Now, a lot of times you can still go AC to DC and AC, or yeah, AC to DC, DC to AC, AC to DC, and still get, your cost savings from an energy standpoint. Because at the end of the day, it's about, your battery loads, right? The more efficient you can make your system is the least amount of, batteries you need and solar panels. Now, it'd be great if we can go from the solar panel to the battery into the home, right? So we are working on a new design that has, and the big issue with that historically has been being able to regulate the DC side, because anytime a battery is, at full charge or low charge, it outputs different voltages, right? So you need a way to regulate that DC power input in order to drive our LEDs. So essentially the future of, solar and battery power is right up our alley, and what we're working on to be able to integrate more efficiently with. But any way you do it, because you're still always going to need, your outlets in the home and
Yeah.
things like that. So you're always going to need to make that conversion. So whether you try to go directly from the battery into our low voltage lighting system, or you just have, an AC plug that plugs into our system, it's still going to be more efficient and better for solar and battery. But that market's been great for us because there's so many consumers who are now more educated on DC, right?
Yeah.
And the benefits of it. And
Yeah.
even with the EV market, there's so many people who understand what DC is, right? People have to buy new chargers for their phones and their different, electronical components now that are being utilized. Like I always say, it's funny. We just did a show in Austin late last year, and I forgot to buy, the AC plug for that booth. So what I'd done, I went to Home Depot and I bought a Ryobi battery that I can also take home with me because I use it for my leaf blower,
Yeah.
and that charged our entire booth for the show.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing to be able to do, man. So can you share some exciting maybe installs or data or some customer feedback that you've been getting? You've already kind of touched
Mhm.
on one thing, just going to get a battery, a Ryobi battery, and charging your whole little system back there, and we'll get to that in a minute as well. But yeah, can you just talk about some exciting installs or some customer feedback that you've gotten about your program or your system?
Sure, sure. So there's feedback from, I can give you the feedback from the clients, the ECs, the builders, right? So it all depends. So we have, primarily several different markets, one of those being our custom home sales, where a lot of times, people are coming to us because they're looking for an LED lighting system that has zero flicker, right? And ours is a DC filtered constant current DALI system on our custom home side. It's a little bit more expensive, but it has zero flicker, subconscious flicker. And a lot of people come to us because they have issues with flicker, right? Whether they have some type of medical condition, a lot of times. We get a lot of really, really good feedback because we're really the only system that has zero flicker. So that's always nice. And we're able to meet those needs of certain clients. And they love the ability to control the color temperature and use our switches. So our switch is pretty cool. From the switch, it looks like a standard Decora switch. You can dim all the way down to zero, but you can also hold down the switch and move the slider and be able to change the color temperature of your lights throughout the home.
Oh, that's
So
fun.
yeah, we get a lot of feedback from clients on those switches. They love the idea that they're saving some cost and energy savings. So we get a lot of that feedback from our clients in love with our system, but we also get feedback from the ECs saying, thanks so much for using this because we love running this wire.
Yeah. Tell
Right.
you.
My fingers, a lot of the guys on site, obviously I work with a lot of ECs who are installing this system. Sometimes it's nice to go on site and talk to the guys who are actually pulling the wire because they love this even more than, the managers who are saving the money in wiring costs.
Yes, we do.
They thank you for their fingers, right? They don't hurt as much at the end of the day when you're pulling 18-2 versus 14.
Yep.
So get good feedback from those guys from cost savings, and obviously builders are super excited about this opportunity. They have a lot of cases where homeowners come back and they are looking for replacements because of failures for disc lights and downlights in the field, as well as they're looking for cost savings too. So we get generally great feedback from everybody in terms of what this system's able to offer.
That's really cool. And we just had a situation on one of our houses recently where we had two light fixtures that weren't working. They were not ATX LED lights. It was not your system, but it was the AC powered AC converted DC LED lights that you get from Home Depot or something like that. So to be able to get light fixtures that worked without having to switch them out is really good. And you know what? It helps with training as well. When we're pulling the smaller wires for people that are starting out, just to kind of get a feel for how we pull wire and that kind of thing. So using the smaller wire is definitely helpful in that sense as well. And I'm hoping that more people see this and adopt this. This would be great. That's why we're here, right?
Absolutely.
So speaking of folks adopting, what types of customers do you see that are most excited about your system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of our homeowners on our custom home side generally are unbelievably excited to find these DC systems.
Yeah.
We talked about solar and battery backup, where people have been looking on the internet, going through Reddit, trying to find sources for DC lighting system and come across us. And it's great being able to communicate back and forth with those type of clients every day. They're definitely the most excited by far.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of excitement from everybody. There's a lot of builders who are volume builders who are super excited about this, trying to integrate this into all their homes throughout the United States. And that's very exciting for us too. We want DC to take off and be the new standard for lighting in the future. It's safer, it's more efficient, it's eco-friendly, it's going to last longer, it's going to generate lower heat contributions. So there's a lot of benefits in going DC. And there hasn't been too many people that aren't excited. We do a lot of trade shows every now and then. You get the electrician who's been doing it the same way for the past 50 years in the business and doesn't want to do it. But besides that, I mean, it's been fantastic.
That's awesome. And I'd like to also say that I met Dennis at a trade show a couple of years ago. And that sparked my excitement as well, just going to the trade show and seeing the system that he has built behind him. I don't know if you want to, if you have it there to show some things or if it's just kind of there as your background.
Yeah. I don't know how well you can see, sometimes cameras pick up different variations, but I do have this hooked up on a DR2 where I can dim it all the way down to 0.
Nice.
And I can even I can change the color temperature as well, all from the switch.
That's awesome. And that's all with low voltage cables. And
it is, yeah. It's all low voltage. Everything behind me is low voltage. I'm changing this thing behind me every other day. I have a little fun playing with the stuff myself. Since it's low voltage, there's a sense of comfortability I have in messing with fixtures, right?
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't say that on the podcast.
It's all good.
Yeah, it is safer, right?
It is. And I had a good time at the trade show, just kind of playing around with what you had on display there. I saw even fans. You had fans running on that thing. You had
Right. Yeah.
like an entire system running off of just one circuit. So let's talk about even
Yeah.
that, like how many the savings that customers will see in terms of the circuitry.
Yeah, so the way the circuitry works is we call them circuits, right? Each circuit, in order to be utilized over low voltage wiring, has to be within Class 2 limitations per the NEC code. And Class 2 requires it, every essentially home run to be under 100 watts and under 60 volts. So our system is 51 volts DC, and then each one of our drivers is a Class 2 certified driver that outputs a maximum of 96 watts. So that is the one thing in utilizing this system that's different than line voltage, right? Line voltage, you can just kind of add up till you get to your kV values and then run another circuit, right? For ours, you have to count and make sure that each lighting fixture that you're adding on one circuit isn't any more than that 96 watts allowed by the LED driver.
Yeah.
So we have bath fans, we have ceiling fans, we have bulbs, we have downlights, we have vanity fixtures, we have every type of fixture that you can get in line voltage, but in DC, right? And we just have to, so we actually have a layout team that goes and runs out the circuits so you know what circuits are powered off of each driver. So we make sure you stay under that 96%. So a lot of times when you go to install, there's not a lot of thought involved. You just follow, the layout provided to you by Clean Life. And it keeps you under that, the great benefit of having Class 2 drivers is that should power supplies get overloaded, you'll be notified by that driver through flashing or your lights will be dim. We do have like a failover as well, where a lot of times we get questioned like what happens if a power supply fails, right? Because they fail inside your fixtures. Now you have one light that goes out.
Yeah.
What happens if a driver fails that's lighting up 2 bedrooms?
Right.
So we have our PSC 40s or PSC 8Ds that have failover. So essentially if one driver fails, the other drivers kick over power to provide power to that circuit and dim it down to 15%. So if your lights ever get dim, you can go back into your power supply cabinet and be able to verify what LED driver failed and be able to replace it there.
Nice.
So
And then in terms of the cabinet, how many circuits do you have to feed the entire cabinet of DC drivers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on power, but I can tell you, we do homes up to 5,000 square feet, and they're all, all the lighting's running off, 120 amp circuit.
Wow.
Yeah.
One circuit for all the lights in the entire house. Wow,
That's right.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That is very, very cool. Very, very cool. So, so let me ask you this. How can Luminary as a company help with your with rolling this out in our upstate kind of central New York area? Tell us how we can help out with that.
Luminary, we're always looking for help and installers. We always have a lot of homes going off all over the country. Getting you guys involved and being able to install this product and understanding, how the circuits go. As I said, it's pretty easy. So we're just looking for the extra help in installing this and getting this product out on the market. Shawni, I know you've been super excited and understanding of low voltage and definitely helping us push it up there in New York, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that are listening, Dennis and I have had multiple conversations, and we've gotten some designs for some houses, and we're talking to some builders. So we're already kind of ahead of the game on this, just so you know. So if this is something that you're interested in, we're definitely the folks to get in contact with to get this rolled out for you.
Luminary is the one,
Luminary is the team, right? So So one little closeout kind of fun, actually two little closeout kind of fun questions. If ATX LED had an unlimited funding, I'm good at this unlimited funding question, but
Yeah.
with no design constraints, what's something that you would build next?
Oh man, that'd be a great question for some of our R&D and engineers. They're constantly designing things and making new product to help bring to the market. Um, Me personally, what would I do with unlimited funds? Uh, Man, I love the idea of low voltage being able to create a different type of design fixture,
Ooh,
right? When you think about DC lighting, and a lot of times you can like search it online, you see linear lighting throughout a home, crisscrossing, looking like tape lighting that's embedded into a ceiling.
yep,
Um, I'm really excited about making, going in low voltage, that opportunity to recreate the design of fixtures, because we no longer needed a design around having an AC to DC converter. So
yeah,
you can think about, your traditional disc light with the big box on the back. You really don't need that, right? So you can get super, super cool with linear recessed lighting throughout a home instead of just disc lights, just having, linear lights
yeah,
across the entire home. And a part of that's making sure you have, a retrofit option there, or sorry, a new box, a new construction to be able to install that in your drywall. People aren't as used to those type of cuts.
yeah,
But I think in going DC, like that opportunity and being able to create a product line around the advantages of being able to do DC lighting, that's where I get excited. So I think about doing this in my home. I want all strip lighting. I want like cool faux looking neon throughout my house, cool designs on the ceiling or across the walls.
yeah.
That stuff excites me.
So is that something you guys are working on? Because I don't see why that's super impossible, but I did say unlimited budget, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's actually possible today. It's more into the design is where I think you would need the funds and getting people on board that way and being able to create the drawings and system around each individual home. But it is a lot of different products, a lot of different wattages and voltages and brightness depending on ceiling heights and stuff. So there is quite a bit of R&D involved for that type of system.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds very cool though, and I think it's probably closer than you think, right?
Oh, I'm sure it is. It always is. And we get told to jump and we have to jump tomorrow, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining me today and shedding light, pun totally intended, on such a shift in home lighting and DC lighting. The work that you guys are doing is very cool. I've told you a number of times I'm very excited about it and excited to kind of introduce your company to the central New York area. And to everyone listening, if you are building a new home, if you are a home builder, if you're looking for something smarter or more efficient in lighting, and you want to kind of future proof your home, this technology isn't just a trend. It is happening. We are here, and it's kind of where the industry is headed, and we're proud to be kind of on the front lines of that, and actually introducing these types of technologies, especially with ATX LED. And other innovative systems and bringing them to the central New York area. So if you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to hit subscribe, hit like and subscribe, review, share the episode. We'd love to see ourselves out there a little more. I know Dennis would love to see himself out there a little more and
I love it.
ATX LED. And thank you guys for tuning in to the current conversation. Until next time, stay curious and stay current.